Taman wiped the grease from his hands and stared at the reactor display. Another 16-hour shift at Meridian Station was finally over. His back hurt, his eyes burned, and all he wanted was to collapse in his quarters. But no. Captain Bora had made it very clear that attendance at tonight's diplomatic reception was mandatory for all crew members. He dragged himself to the cleaning station, changed into his dress uniform, and headed toward the main hall. The corridor hummed with the usual station noises. Merchants haggled in a dozen different languages. Somewhere, a food vendor was cooking something that smelled both amazing and slightly concerning. This was life on the edge of human space, where everyone came to trade, deal, and occasionally start fights. The reception hall was packed. Humans mingled with various alien species, all trying to look friendly while secretly sizing each other up. Taman grabbed a drink from a passing server. It tasted like cheap alcohol mixed with cheaper fruit juice, but after the day he'd had, it was perfect. His friend Hyunwoo appeared beside him, looking equally exhausted. They had been working together to upgrade the station's defense grid for 3 months straight. Hyunwoo nodded toward the entrance where a group of tall, imposing figures had just arrived. The Ashran delegation had entered the hall. Taman had heard about them but never seen one up close. They were impressive. Tall, with violet skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Strange markings covered their arms and faces, glowing faintly with colors that shifted like oil on water. The females were even taller than the males, and they moved with the confidence of trained warriors. One of them caught his attention immediately. She stood at least 6.5 feet tall, with sharp features and eyes that scanned the room like she was calculating threats. Her markings glowed a steady blue, and she wore what looked like ceremonial armor mixed with diplomatic robes. She looked bored, annoyed, and dangerous all at once. Taemin took another sip of his drink. Hyunwoo elbowed him and whispered that the tall one was Vela, some kind of warrior diplomat. Very important, very serious, very much not someone to mess with. The evening dragged on. Speeches were made. Toasts were given. Taemin considered sneaking out, but Captain Bora was watching him like a hawk. He grabbed another drink instead. Maybe his third or fourth. He'd lost count. That's when the shouting started. A mercenary, drunk and stupid, had decided to insult the Ashran delegation. Something about them being purple freaks who didn't belong on human stations. The kind of thing that normally got you thrown in the brig, but apparently this guy thought he was clever. Vela moved so fast that Taemin almost missed it. One moment the mercenary was yelling. The next he was flat on his back with Vela's boot on his chest. She hadn't even raised her voice. Just moved with the kind of efficiency that said she'd done this 1,000 times before. 2 security guards dragged the mercenary away, and Vela returned to her position as if nothing had happened. Taemin laughed. He couldn't help it. The whole thing was so smooth, so perfectly executed. The mercenary had deserved it, and Vela had barely broken a sweat. Something about her serious expression, the way she just went back to looking bored, struck him as funny. The alcohol had definitely loosened his tongue. Before he could stop himself, the words tumbled out. Wow, you'd be a cute wife? The entire room seemed to go quiet. Or maybe that was just in his head. Hyunwoo grabbed his arm, hissing at him to shut up. But it was too late. Vela had turned to look at him. Her glowing markings suddenly shifted from blue to a mixture of purple and gold. Her eyes widened slightly, and for the first time that evening she looked genuinely surprised. She walked toward him. Each step was deliberate, measured. Taemin felt his stomach drop. He'd just insulted an alien warrior diplomat at a formal reception. Captain Bora was going to kill him. If Vela didn't do it first, but Vela didn't look angry. She looked shocked, maybe even pleased. She stopped directly in front of him, so close he had to tilt his head back to meet her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear. And she spoke in perfect Korean. Then I accept your courtship proposal. Taemin's brain stopped working. He stared at her. She stared back. Hyunwoo made a strangled noise and tried to explain that it was just a joke, that Taemin was tired and drunk and didn't mean anything by it. But Vela raised one hand and Hyunwoo fell silent. Among my people, Vela said, still in Korean, when a male declares a female would make a suitable mate, it is a formal proposal. I have accepted. We are now in courtship. Captain Bora appeared out of nowhere, her face tight with controlled panic. She pulled Taemin aside while other officers tried to calm the suddenly very interested Ashran delegation. In a harsh whisper, Bora explained the situation. The Ashran took courtship declarations very seriously. It was a binding contract. To reject Vela's acceptance now would be a massive insult, not just to her but to her entire species. And given that humanity desperately needed the Ashran alliance to counter other hostile alien factions, a diplomatic incident was the last thing anyone needed. Timon wanted to argue. He wanted to explain it was just a stupid joke. But looking at Vela's face, seeing the way her markings pulsed with color, he realized she genuinely believed he'd proposed. She looked hopeful, like this was something she actually wanted. Captain Bora put it simply. He could go through with the courtship, follow their customs, and try to make it work. Or he could reject her, damage the alliance, and probably get reassigned to the worst posting in human space. Maybe both. Timon looked at Vela again. She stood tall and proud, waiting for his answer. Her markings had settled into a warm golden glow. For an alien warrior who had just thrown a grown man across the room, she suddenly looked almost vulnerable. He took a deep breath and turned to Captain Bora. What exactly does Ashran courtship involve? Bora's expression softened slightly. I'll have our cultural liaison brief you in the morning. For now, just don't make it worse. Timon walked back to Vela. She watched him approach with those intense eyes. He had no idea what he was doing. No idea what he'd just gotten himself into. But he managed a weak smile and said, I guess we should talk about this. Vela's markings brightened. Yes, we have much to discuss, Timon Park. The fact that she knew his full name was somehow both impressive and terrifying. As the reception continued around them, Timon realized his life had just become incredibly complicated. All because of one stupid joke and too much cheap alcohol. Hyunwoo patted his shoulder sympathetically. Well, you wanted excitement in your life, Timon groaned. This was not what he'd meant. The cultural liaison's briefing had been 3 hours of pure terror. Ashran courtship involved physical trials, gift exchanges, philosophical debates, and something called the proving of worth. Timon had left the meeting with a data pad full of customs he didn't understand and a headache that wouldn't quit. Vela had requested their first official courtship meeting that evening. She'd chosen the station's training arena, which didn't seem like a great sign. Timon arrived early, wearing exercise clothes and trying not to panic. He was an engineer, not a soldier. If she expected him to fight, he was going to fail spectacularly. She was already there, wearing fitted training gear that somehow made her look even more intimidating. Her markings glowed a steady blue, which according to his datapad meant she was calm and focused. At least she wasn't angry. Angry was red, apparently. You came, she said, sounding genuinely pleased. Of course I came. We have a courtship contract. Timon tried to sound confident. He mostly sounded nervous. Vela nodded approvingly. Many humans would have fled by now. You honor the agreement. This is good. She gestured to the arena. The first trial tests compatibility in combat. We must know if we can protect each other. Timon's stomach sank. Right. Combat. Great. She must have seen his expression because her markings shifted to a lighter purple. Concern, his datapad had said. You are afraid? I'm not a fighter, Vela. I fix machines. I'm going to embarrass myself. For the first time since he'd met her, Vela smiled. It was small, barely there, but real. The trial does not require you to defeat me, Timon. It requires you to show how you think, how you adapt. Use your strengths, not mine. That actually made sense. Timon took a breath and nodded. Okay, what are the rules? The simulation started simple. Virtual enemies appeared, basic combat scenarios. Vela moved through them like water, efficient and deadly. Timon tried to copy her and immediately got tagged by simulated weapons fire. This was going exactly as badly as he'd expected. Then he stopped trying to fight like her and started thinking like an engineer. The arena had environmental controls, gravity plating, magnetic fields, light systems. He couldn't outfight the simulated enemies, but he could change the battlefield. He reduced gravity in one section, causing enemies to float helplessly. He overloaded light panels to create blinding flashes at key moments. He used magnetic pulses to pull weapons from enemy hands. It was messy and improvised and probably broke half the arena's safety protocols, but it worked. Vela watched him with growing interest. Her markings shifted through several colors, finally settling on bright gold. When the simulation ended, she approached him with something like respect in her eyes. Clever, she said. You turned weakness into strength. Use tools others ignored. This is valued among Ashran. Our greatest warriors are not always the strongest, but the most adaptable. Taemin felt a weird flush of pride. Really? Really? She tilted her head, studying him. You surprise me, Taemin Park. Most humans I have met are direct, forceful. You think in curves and angles. Over the next few weeks, they continued the courtship trials. Each one taught Taemin something new about Vela and her people. The gift exchange was particularly interesting. He'd given her a small toolkit he'd assembled himself, each tool modified for efficiency. She'd stared at it for a long moment, her markings cycling through colors he didn't recognize, then carefully stored it like it was precious. Her gift to him was a book of Ashran war poetry. He'd expected something aggressive, triumphant. Instead, the poems were sad and beautiful, full of longing for home and lost friends. Warriors writing about the things they'd given up for duty. I didn't expect this, he admitted, reading through the translated verses. What did you expect? I don't know. Victory songs? Battle chants? Bella's markings dimmed slightly. Those exist too. But these are what warriors write when no one is watching, when we remember that war has costs. She paused. I thought you might understand. You seem like someone who thinks about costs. He did understand, more than he'd expected to. They started spending time together outside the formal courtship trials. He introduced her to the station's small Korean restaurant, watching her face as she tried tteokbokki for the first time. The spice made her markings flash bright orange, but she kept eating, determined to experience it properly. Your people enjoy pain in their food, she observed, reaching for water. We enjoy challenge in our food. Taemin corrected with a grin. She laughed, actually laughed. It was a strange sound, deeper than a human laugh, but genuine. Her markings turned warm gold again. He was starting to really like that color. But not everything was smooth. Jihai showed up one evening while he was having dinner with Vela. His ex-girlfriend looked at them with barely concealed disgust. She'd been assigned to a mining operation 6 months ago, and Taemin had hoped he wouldn't see her again. No such luck, really, Taemin? An alien? Jihai's voice dripped with contempt. What, human women aren't good enough anymore? Vela's markings flashed red. She stood slowly, towering over Jihai. You are being disrespectful. I'm being honest. This whole thing is unnatural. You're just using him for some political game. Taemin stood up, putting himself between them. Jihai, stop. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? Look at yourself. Playing alien dress-up for some purple freak who probably sees you as a curiosity. Vela moved so fast that Taemin barely caught her arm in time. Her whole body was tense, markings blazing red. But she stopped, looked at him, and slowly, deliberately stepped back. I will not dishonor myself by striking someone so ignorant, Vela said quietly. Her accent was thicker when she was angry. Come, Taemin. This conversation has no value. As they left, Taemin could feel Jihai's glare burning into his back. This was going to become a problem. He could feel it. That night, Vela asked him to meet her at the observation deck. The station was between star systems, so the view was nothing but endless darkness and distant stars. She stood at the window, her markings providing the only light in the dim room. Your former mate hates me, Vela said without preamble. Jihai hates everyone. We broke up because she couldn't stand anyone who didn't think exactly like her. Do other humans think as she does? That our courtship is wrong? Taemin moved to stand beside her. Some do. People fear what's different. But they're wrong, Vela. She was quiet for a long moment. Among Ashran, females rarely receive genuine affection. We are chosen for our genetics, our family connections, our military achievements. Romance is considered a weakness. Her markings dimmed to a soft blue. I thought humans might be different, that your males might choose with their hearts instead of strategy. Something in her voice made Taemin's chest ache. He'd started this as an accident, a drunk mistake he'd been forced to honor. But somewhere along the way, it had become real. He liked spending time with her, liked her dry sense of humor, her unexpected gentleness, the way she tried so hard to understand human customs. Vela, I need to tell you something. She turned to face him, her expression carefully neutral, preparing for bad news. When I first said that stupid thing at the reception, it was a joke. I was drunk and tired and not thinking. He saw her markings start to fade and quickly continued. But that was then. Now I'm not joking anymore. I like this. I like you. And I want to keep doing this courtship thing, not because I have to, but because I want to. Her markings blazed gold so bright that he had to blink. Truly? Truly. Vela reached out slowly, carefully, and took his hand. It was a human gesture, one she'd clearly practiced. Her skin was warm, her grip gentle despite her obvious strength. Then we continue, she said softly. Together. Outside the window, stars drifted past in the endless dark. Inside, two people from different worlds held hands and decided to see where this strange path would lead. The alarm woke Taemin at 0400 hours. Not a drill. The real thing. He rolled out of bed and pulled on his uniform while the station's emergency broadcast system crackled to life. Captain Bora's voice was calm but urgent. All personnel to battle stations. Hostile fleet detected at the edge of the system. Taemin ran toward the engineering section, his mind already racing through system checks and backup protocols. The corridors were chaos. People shouting, running, some still pulling on uniforms. He found Hyunwoo already at the main console, fingers flying across the display. Kethrin Collective, Hyunwoo said without looking up. 20 warships. Maybe more coming. They're not even trying to hide their approach. The Kethrin were bad news. They'd been expanding aggressively for years, conquering weaker species and absorbing their territory. Humanity had avoided direct conflict so far, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time. And now, apparently, that time had come. Captain Bora's voice came through the comm system. All section heads report to the command center immediately. Taemin left Hyunwoo to manage the engineering deck and headed up. The command center was packed with officers, both human and Ashran. Vela stood near the tactical display, her markings a steady, focused blue. She met his eyes briefly and he saw worry there. Not for herself, but for what was coming. Bora didn't waste time on speeches. The Kethrin have issued an ultimatum. They claim this sector belongs to them now. They're demanding we surrender the station and all military assets within 6 hours, or they attack. What about evacuation? Someone asked. We have civilian transports, but not enough to evacuate everyone in 6 hours. And even if we did, there are 3 colony settlements within range. If we abandon this station, the Kethrin will hit those colonies next. They'll have no warning, no defenses. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. They couldn't run. They had to fight against a force that massively outnumbered them. Vela stepped forward. Captain, I request permission to speak with my delegation. The Ashran Honor Guard is trained for situations exactly like this. We can help, Bora nodded. Granted. We need everyone working together if we're going to survive this. The meeting broke up into smaller groups. Taemin found himself assigned to work with Vela on defensive strategies. They commandeered a small conference room and started going through the station's capabilities. Our weapons are designed for anti-pirate operations, Taemin explained, pulling up schematics. Nothing that can seriously damage a Kethrin warship. Then we do not fight them directly, Vela said. She manipulated the display with practiced ease, highlighting sections of the station. We use the environment. The station itself becomes the weapon. They worked for hours combining human creativity with Ashran tactical doctrine. Taemin proposed using the mining lasers, normally used for asteroid processing, as improvised weapons. Vela suggested focusing fire on specific points to create maximum damage. Together, they developed a plan that was desperate, dangerous, and just might work. During a brief break, Vela pulled him aside. Her markings were dim, tired. There is something I must tell you. What is it? I am not merely a diplomat, Taemin. Before this assignment, I was a frontline commander. I have fought in 7 major campaigns against various hostile forces. She looked away. I requested transfer to diplomatic service after the Kessian War. I had done things, given orders, that still haunt me. I thought perhaps I could serve my people differently. With words instead of weapons, Taemin reached for her hand. And now you're being forced back into it. Yes, but this time feels different. She met his eyes. This time I fight not because I was ordered to, but because I choose to. To protect you, to protect this place we have built together, however strange it may be. Before he could respond, Hyunwoo burst into the room, his face pale. We have a problem. Someone sabotaged the primary defense grid. Half our automated systems just went offline. Taemin felt his blood run cold. How is that possible? Those systems are isolated, encrypted. Inside job, Hyunwoo said grimly. Had to be someone with high-level access. They raced back to engineering. The damage was extensive, clearly done by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. While Hyunwoo worked to trace the sabotage, Taemin started running diagnostics on backup systems. They had maybe 4 hours before the Catherine deadline expired. They couldn't afford this. Hyunwoo found the source 30 minutes later. Access codes traced back to Jihai's terminal. Taemin stared at the screen in disbelief. She wouldn't. She's petty and bitter, but this is treason. Maybe she didn't think it was treason. Maybe someone convinced her she was doing the right thing. Hyunwoo pulled up communication logs. Look, encrypted messages to an unknown source. Started 2 weeks ago. Vela appeared beside them, having heard the commotion. She studied the logs with narrowed eyes. Catherine recruitment tactics. They find discontented individuals, offer them money or promises, turn them into assets. Her markings flashed angry red. Where is this Jihi now? Security found her in her quarters, packing a bag. She'd planned to escape on a civilian transport before the shooting started. When Captain Bora confronted her, Jihai broke down, crying about how she'd only wanted to help, how the Catherine had promised they'd spare the humans if someone just let them in peacefully. She'd believed their lies. Bora had her arrested, but the damage was done. Their defensive capabilities were cut nearly in half. Hyunwoo and the other engineers worked frantically to restore what they could, but time was running out. Taemin stood in the engineering bay, staring at the useless systems, trying to think. There had to be a way. Humans didn't give up. That was their whole thing, wasn't it? Humans adapted, improvised, found solutions where none existed. An idea struck him, crazy, dangerous, but possible. He called Vela and Hyunwoo over, started sketching on a data pad. The mining lasers. We were going to use them defensively, right? But what if we went on offense? Against warships? Hyunwoo looked doubtful. Mining lasers aren't designed for that. No, but they're designed to cut through asteroids. And asteroids are basically rock and metal. You know what else is rock and metal? The Catherine home system. They build their ships from materials that can withstand their sun's radiation. Heavy metals, dense alloys. Those materials have specific resonance frequencies. Vela caught on immediately. If we modulate the laser frequency to match their hull composition, we could create harmonic stress points. Weak spots that conventional weapons could exploit. Exactly. It won't destroy them outright, but it'll make them vulnerable. Hyunwoo grinned despite the situation. That's absolutely insane. I love it. They brought the plan to Captain Bora. She listened, asked pointed questions, then nodded slowly. Do it. Whatever you need, you have it. The Catherine deadline came and went. Their fleet moved into attack formation, confident in their overwhelming advantage. They'd probably expected the station to surrender or scatter. Instead, they got something they hadn't prepared for. Humans and Ashran working together. Combining tactics, sharing knowledge, turning weakness into strength. The battle was about to begin, and both sides knew only one would be left standing when it ended. Vela found Taemin one last time before taking her position with the Ashran Honor Guard. Her markings were calm, resolved. If we survive this, I want to complete our courtship properly. Not because of duty or politics, but because I have chosen you, Taemin Park. He kissed her hand, a gesture that made her markings flash bright gold. When we survive this, he corrected. When, not if. She smiled, fierce and beautiful. When, she agreed. Then the alarm sounded and the battle for Meridian Station began. The first Catherine volley hit the station's outer shields at exactly 800 hours. The entire structure shuddered. Lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, alarms screamed warnings about hull breaches and failing systems. Taemin gripped his console and watched the tactical display light up with hostile contacts. 20 Catherine warships. Each one 3 times the size of Meridian Station. Their weapons were designed to crack planetary defenses. The station had mining lasers and hope. It wasn't a fair fight. Captain Bora's voice cut through the chaos. All batteries return fire. Execute pattern Delta 7. The mining lasers came online, their targeting systems controlled by Taemin's carefully programmed modifications. Instead of trying to pierce Catherine armor directly, the beams pulsed at specific frequencies, creating resonance, building harmonic vibrations in the enemy hull plates. For a few seconds, nothing seemed to happen. The Catherine ships continued their approach, confident and unstoppable. Then the first one began showing stress fractures along its primary hull. Small at first, barely visible, but growing. It's working, Hyunwoo shouted from his station. The resonance is creating weak points. Their armor is crystallizing along fault lines. Vela's voice came through the comm from the combat deck. All units target the fracture points. Conventional weapons concentrate fire. The Ashran Honor Guard had positioned themselves at key defensive positions throughout the station. Human Marines coordinated with them, combining firepower. Where the mining lasers weakened enemy armor, human and Ashran weapons punched through. It was still a desperate fight, but at least now they were fighting instead of dying. A Kethran boarding ship broke through the perimeter. It latched onto the station's lower docking ring and began cutting through. Vela led her unit down to meet them, moving with the fluid precision of a trained warrior. Taemin watched through security cameras, his heart pounding. She made it look easy, but he could see how outnumbered they were. Hyunwoo, can you seal sections around the breach? Limit their access? Already on it. Dropping emergency bulkheads now. The Kethran poured through the breach point only to find themselves trapped in a confined space with an angry Ashran warrior and her honor guard. It was over in minutes. Vela's team moved with practiced efficiency, every motion calculated. When the last Kethran fell, she simply stepped over the bodies and moved to reinforce the next position. But there were too many fronts. Too many enemy ships. The station's shields were failing section by section. Taemin watched the damage reports pile up and knew they couldn't sustain this. They needed something more. Something the Kethran wouldn't expect. An idea formed. Dangerous, maybe suicidal, but possible. Captain, I have a plan. I need a shuttle and someone who can fly in combat conditions. Bora appeared on his screen, her face streaked with soot from a fire somewhere in the command center. What kind of plan? The Kethran flagship is coordinating their entire fleet. I've been analyzing their formation patterns. They're using a centralized command structure. If we can disable that flagship even temporarily, the rest of their fleet will fall into disarray. We've been hitting that flagship with everything we have. Its shields are too strong. From the outside, yes. But shields work both ways. They keep damage out but also trap things in. If we could get inside their shield perimeter with an electromagnetic pulse device, we could overload their systems from within. Their own shields would contain the blast, amplifying the effect. Bora stared at him like he'd lost his mind. You want to fly a shuttle into the middle of their flagship's shield envelope? That's suicide, only if I go alone. But if I had someone covering me, someone who could keep enemy fighters off us long enough to deploy the pulse device, we might make it. I volunteer. Vela's voice cut across the channel. She appeared on screen. Her armor scored with weapon burns but her eyes fierce. I can provide cover. My combat armor has enough firepower to clear a path. Vela, no. This is too dangerous, she smiled at him through the screen. You humans have a saying, yes? About doing dangerous things because they are right? Her markings blazed gold. We fight together, Taemin. That is what courtship means. Facing danger as one. There wasn't time to argue. The station's main shield generator exploded, sending shockwaves through the entire structure. They were running out of time and options. Captain Bora made the call. You're authorized. Get to Shuttle Bay 3. I'll have the EMP device ready. Taemin ran through corridors filled with smoke and sparking cables. Crew members rushed past, some wounded, all determined. This was humanity at its best, refusing to surrender even when the odds were impossible. He reached the shuttle bay to find Vela already there, checking weapon systems. She'd attached additional weapon pods to the shuttle's exterior. Military-grade equipment that looked completely out of place on a civilian transport. But it might just work. Ready? She asked. Not even a little bit. She laughed, that deep, genuine sound he'd come to love. Good. Only fools are ready for this. She climbed into the gunner's seat while he took the pilot position. The EMP device sat in the cargo hold, a sphere of condensed electromagnetic fury that would fry every electronic system within 100 meters. The shuttle bay doors opened. Space beyond was chaos. Ships firing, explosions blooming like deadly flowers, debris spinning through the void. Taemin took a deep breath and punched the engines. They shot out into the battle. Immediately, 3 Kethran fighters peeled off to intercept. Vela's targeting systems locked on and she fired with surgical precision. The fighters never stood a chance. She cleared their path with ruthless efficiency, her training and instincts taking over. Taemin flew like his life depended on it. Because it did. He'd never been trained for combat piloting. He was making it up as he went, using every trick he knew about physics and momentum. The shuttle wasn't designed for this kind of maneuvering, but he pushed it anyway. A plasma bolt grazed their port side. Alarms screamed. Vela returned fire, taking out the attacking ship. Keep going. We're almost there. The Kethrin flagship loomed ahead, massive and terrible. Its shields shimmered like a soap bubble, beautiful and deadly. Taemin plotted a course that would take them through a weak point in the shield perimeter, a tiny gap that existed for just microseconds as the shields cycled. "This is going to be tight," he warned. "I trust you." Those 3 words steadied him. He lined up the approach, calculated the timing, and pushed the shuttle to maximum speed. The gap appeared. He shot through it. The shields closed behind them with a snap of energy that made his teeth ache. They were inside, trapped within the flagship's defensive perimeter, but exactly where they needed to be. Taemin maneuvered close to the flagship's hull while Vela kept enemy point defense systems busy. Deploying EMP device now. He ejected the sphere. It drifted toward the flagship's hull, magnetic clamps engaging automatically. The timer started. 30 seconds. They had to get clear. Taemin spun the shuttle around and punched toward the shield perimeter, but the Kethrin had realized what was happening. Their fighters swarmed, desperate to stop them. Vela fired continuously, her weapons glowing hot, but there were too many. A direct hit took out their starboard engine. The shuttle spun, losing power. Taemin fought the controls, trying to stabilize. They weren't going to make it out in time. Vela released her harness and moved to the back of the shuttle. "Keep flying! Get as far as you can." "What are you doing?" She grabbed her personal shield generator, the one built into her combat armor. "Buying us time." "I love you, Taemin Park." Before he could respond, she blew the emergency hatch and launched herself into space. Her armor's thrusters fired, and she positioned herself between the shuttle and the incoming fire. Her personal shield expanded, catching enemy weapons that would have destroyed them. The EMP detonated. The pulse wave erupted in all directions, contained and amplified by the flagship's own shields. Every system on the Kethrin ship died instantly. The shields failed. The command vessel went dark and dead, drifting in space. The pulse caught Vela too. Her armor went offline. Her shield failed. She tumbled through space, lifeless. No. Taemin pushed the damaged shuttle to its limits, closing the distance. He opened the airlock, reached out with the emergency retrieval field, and pulled her inside. Her armor was scorched and smoking. He couldn't tell if she was breathing. Throughout the battlefield, the Kethrin fleet fell into chaos. Without their flagship's coordination, ships began contradicting each other, firing at random, some even hitting their own forces. The human and Ashran defenders pressed their advantage, driving the confused enemy back. Taemin held Vela's still form and prayed to gods he didn't believe in that she would survive this. That his stupid plan hadn't cost him the person he'd only just found. Her eyes opened. Her markings flickered weakly back to life, pulsing with faint gold light. "Did we win?" she whispered. Taemin laughed through tears he didn't remember starting. "We won." 3 weeks after the battle, Meridian Station still showed scars. Repair crews worked around the clock fixing hull breaches and replacing damaged systems. The medical bay overflowed with wounded from both the human and Ashran forces, but they had survived. Against impossible odds, they had won. The Kethrin collective had withdrawn completely, their fleet scattered after losing their flagship. Rumor said their high command was in chaos, dealing with internal power struggles. Meridian Station had become a symbol throughout human space, the place where 2 species stood together and refused to break. Taemin sat beside Vela's medical bed for the 3rd day in a row. The EMP blast had fried most of her armor systems and caused serious injuries. The doctors said she'd recover fully, but it would take time. Her markings were dim, conserving energy as her body healed. "You should rest," she said quietly. "You have been here every day." "Where else would I be?" She reached for his hand. Her grip was weaker than normal, but still warm. "I meant what I said out there." Before the explosion, Taemin felt his throat tighten. "I know. I love you too, Vela. I should have said it then. Should have said it before you threw yourself into space to save me. Then say it now. I love you. Completely. Impossibly. I don't care that you're Ashran and I'm human. I don't care what anyone thinks. I want to finish this courtship properly and spend whatever time we have together." Her markings brightened to brilliant gold. The medical monitors beeped faster as her heart rate increased. "Then we shall, as soon as these irritating doctors release me." Captain Bora visited that afternoon with surprising news. Both human and Ashran high commands had taken notice of what happened at Meridian Station. The successful cooperation between their forces had impressed military leaders on both sides. More importantly, the story of Taimin and Vela's courtship had spread throughout both populations. You two have become symbols, Bora explained, looking faintly amused by the whole situation. The human who accidentally proposed to an alien warrior and the warrior who said yes. People love it. There are petitions demanding your wedding be broadcast across human space. Taimin groaned. Please tell me you're joking. I wish I was. The diplomatic corps sees this as a massive opportunity to strengthen human-Ashran relations. They're suggesting a formal ceremony that incorporates both cultures. Bora shrugged. Of course you can refuse. But it might do some good. Show people that different species can build bridges. Vela squeezed Taimin's hand. What do you think? He thought about Jihai, about all the people who'd looked at them with disgust or confusion. Then he thought about the crew members who'd fought alongside Ashran warriors and learned they weren't so different, the engineers who'd shared techniques and ideas, the slow building of trust that had saved all their lives. Okay, he said, but we do it our way. Real traditions from both cultures. No political speeches or fake sentiment, Bora smiled. I'll let them know. 2 months later, the station's main assembly hall had been transformed. One side was decorated in traditional Korean wedding style, with red and blue fabrics representing cosmic harmony. The other side featured Ashran ceremonial elements, including bioluminescent plants that pulsed in rhythmic patterns. In the center where the two styles met, they'd created something entirely new. Taimin stood in traditional Korean hanbok, modified slightly to accommodate the ceremonial weapons he'd been gifted by the Ashran honor guard. Hyunwoo stood beside him as best man, grinning like an idiot. Never thought I'd see the day, Hyunwoo whispered. You getting married to an alien warrior because of a drunken joke. If you tell that story during your speech, I'm demoting you. You can't demote me. We're the same rank. I'll find a way. The ceremony began with traditional Korean elements. Taimin's family had sent recorded messages from Earth, blessing the union despite their confusion about his choice of bride. His mother had cried, though she tried to hide it. His father had simply said he hoped Taimin was happy. It was more acceptance than he'd expected. Then came the Ashran traditions. Vela entered wearing ceremonial armor polished to a mirror shine, her markings blazing with colors that represented joy, commitment, and love. She looked fierce and beautiful and completely overwhelming. When she reached the altar, her honor guard formed up behind her, a show of respect and protection. Captain Bora officiated, reading vows that had been carefully crafted to honor both cultures. The exchange of gifts came next. Taimin presented Vela with a modified data pad containing engineering schematics, poetry, and personal messages he'd written. She laughed and cried simultaneously, her markings shifting through a rainbow of emotions. Vela's gift to him was a piece of her combat armor, reshaped into a bracelet. So that part of me is always protecting you, she explained. Even when we are apart. The Ashran combat vows came next. These were traditionally spoken only between warriors, a promise to stand together against any threat. Vela spoke them in her native language, then translated for the human guests. I vow to stand beside you in battle and in peace, to protect what you value, to share what I have, to face whatever comes without fear because we face it together. Taimin had memorized the response, working with Ashran language tutors for weeks. His pronunciation was probably terrible, but Vela's markings blazed even brighter when he spoke. Then came the Korean traditions. The sharing of wine, symbolizing the mixing of two families, the deep bows to parents, though Vela's family was light years away, and participating through hologram. The exchange of wooden ducks representing fidelity and partnership. When it was done, when all the rituals had been completed and all the vows spoken, Captain Bora smiled and said simply, You may kiss your bride. Taimin cupped Vela's face gently and kissed her. It wasn't the first time they'd kissed, but this felt different. Final. Right. When they pulled apart, her markings had settled into a steady, warm gold that lit up the entire front of the hall. The celebration afterward was chaotic and beautiful. Human and Ashran crew members mingled freely, sharing food and stories. Someone had programmed the station's speakers to alternate between Korean music and Ashran war drums. It shouldn't have worked, but somehow it did. Hyunwoo gave a speech that managed to be both embarrassing and touching. He talked about Taimin's dedication to his work, his loyalty to his friends, and his completely accidental stumble into the most important relationship of his life. The crowd laughed and cheered. An Ashran warrior gave a speech about Vela, describing her valor in combat and her unexpected gentleness in peace. About how she had taught them that strength and love were not opposites but complements. Late in the evening, Taimin and Vela escaped to the observation deck, the same place where she'd first admitted her loneliness, where he'd first realized he was falling for her. Stars drifted past the window, endless and bright. "Do you regret it?" Vela asked quietly. "Your accidental proposal that became this?" Taimin pulled her close. She rested her head on his shoulder, a gesture that had taken weeks to perfect given their height difference. "Not for a second. Best drunk mistake I ever made." She laughed, that deep, genuine sound that still made his heart race. "We have new orders. Captain Bora showed me before the ceremony." "Oh?" "A joint human Ashran exploration vessel. The Harmony. They want us to serve together to be examples of cooperation between our species." Her markings flickered with uncertainty. "It means leaving Meridian Station, traveling into unknown space. It could be dangerous. More dangerous than fighting off a Kethran invasion fleet with mining lasers?" "Point taken." She turned to face him fully. "Are you ready for this? For a life of constant travel and uncertainty?" Taimin thought about his old life. The routine maintenance shifts, the lonely quarters, the feeling that he was just going through the motions. Then he thought about what he had now. A partner who challenged him, inspired him, made him want to be better than he was. "With you, I'm ready for anything." Her markings blazed gold so bright that it filled the entire observation deck with warm light. Outside the window, a transport ship was docking. The Harmony, their new home. It was smaller than a station, but built for long-range exploration. Human and Ashran crew members would work side by side, pushing into unexplored regions of space. "They are calling it the Harmony Initiative," Vela explained. "Joint missions to build understanding between species. Diplomatic outreach and exploration combined. We will be the first crew, but they hope to expand the program. So we're basically experimental test subjects to see if humans and Ashran can really work together long-term." "Yes, does that bother you?" Taimin grinned. "Are you kidding? We're going to be great at this. We've already proven that different perspectives make better solutions. Human creativity plus Ashran discipline. We'll show everyone how it's done." Vela kissed him again, her markings pulsing with happiness. When they finally pulled apart, she whispered, "You know, when I first accepted your proposal, I thought humans were impulsive and foolish. And now? Now I know you are impulsive and foolish, but also brave, clever, and kind." She smiled. "And I would not change a single thing about you, Taimin Park." They stood together at the window, watching stars drift past and their future approach. A human engineer and an Ashran warrior, bound together by accident and choice. Two people from impossible worlds who,